in child protective services, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Yeah. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection, okay? And that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This is someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue. True. I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Were there signs there? Were there no signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Fight With Me Fridays. Please excuse my background. I've got somebody very special coming to fly in and visit me today, and I have no idea what I'm going to wear. So I stayed up late last night doing every piece of laundry that I own, and still my suitcase is empty. So today we're going to talk about borderline personality disorder. This is something that I personally have experience with, so I can talk about it. Just again, disclosure, I'm not a licensed psychiatrist or psychologist. I'm talking from my own experience. I've got a couple of things that I'm going to play for you today, and we're also going to talk about some different coping skills. And then towards the end, I have a little bit of show and tell. So I just want to start this morning off with just a deep breath. So everybody breathe in with me. And then hold it for 5. And then exhale for 8. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We're not going to have a guest today. Hopefully the videos will take up a good amount of time. So let's talk about what is borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder is a mental health disorder that impacts the way you think and feel about yourself and others, causing problems functioning in everyday life. It includes self-image issues, difficulty managing emotions and behavior, and a pattern of unstable relationships. With borderline personality disorder, you have an intense fear of abandonment or instability, and you may have difficulty tolerating being alone. Yet, inappropriate anger, impulsiveness, and frequent mood swings may push others away, even though you want to have loving and lasting relationships. Borderline personality disorder usually begins by early adulthood. The condition seems to be worse in young adulthood and may gradually get better with age. If you have borderline personality disorder, don't get discouraged. Many people with this disorder get better over time with treatment and can learn to live satisfying lives. So let's talk about some of the symptoms. Borderline personality disorder affects how you feel about yourself, how you relate to others, and how you behave. Signs and symptoms may include an intense fear of abandonment, even going to extreme measures to avoid real or imagined separation or rejection. A pattern of unstable, intense relationships, such as idealizing someone one moment and suddenly believing the person doesn't care enough or is cruel the next. This is something called splitting. If you'd like, we can get more into that another time. That in itself would take like at least an hour to talk about. Another one is a pattern of unstable, intense relationships. Okay, there we go. Rapid changes in self-identity and self-image that include shifting goals and values and seeing yourself as bad or as if you don't exist at all. Periods of stress-related paranoia and loss of contact with reality lasting from a few minutes to a few hours. Impulsive and risky behavior such as gambling, reckless driving, unsafe sex, spending sprees, binge eating or drug abuse, or sabotaging success by suddenly quitting a good job or ending a positive relationship. Another sign is suicidal threats or behavior of self-injury, often in response to fear of separation or rejection. Wide mood swings lasting from a few hours to a few days, which can include intense happiness, irritability, shame, or anxiety. Ongoing feelings of emptiness, inappropriate, intense anger, such as frequently losing your temper, being sarcastic or bitter, or having physical fights. Now I'm going to pause right there. I haven't been officially diagnosed with this, but it has been kind of something that we've been looking at. I know last week on Fight With Me Friday, we talked about a little bit of my childhood, which was, for lack of better words, fucking crazy. I was left with a lot of trauma, a lot of PTSD, and, that type of trauma can lead to chemical imbalances that can be seen as something like borderline. Now, I'm not extreme. There are different types. I think right now they've identified 4 different types. And this has taken place this has replaced in the DSM, the split personality disorder. So split personality is no longer a thing. They have decided to call it borderline now. And there's still a lot that we haven't learned about this. And another thing that I do want to point out, because, there's such a negative stigma against mental health. People are afraid to talk about it. People are afraid to admit, okay, well, I have something that I'm dealing with. And really at the end of the day, what it boils down to is that, the DSM, like I have a copy of the DSM-5. Anybody who reads it, they'll tell you in psychology class, which I did take some in college. You read the DSM, you're going to see yourself in it at least 3 times. That's what they say. Doesn't mean you have it, but you're going to recognize certain patterns within yourself. So, I want to end the stigma. We're never going to be able to get better or get help if we're constantly hiding from these diagnoses, which, furthermore, are really just man's made up, labels for something that we barely understand, which is the human mind and our consciousness. So, not to negate the validity of any diagnoses that we may have, but becoming more aware and knowing how to handle those is very, it's very important to our journey and learning how to, deal with things that we've had to endure in our lives and how to love ourselves and become, truly stable people mentally and emotionally. So, and that's one of my goals. So when do you see a doctor? If you're aware that you have any signs or symptoms above, talk to your doctor or mental health provider. If you have suicidal thoughts, if you have fantasies or mental images about hurting yourself or have other suicidal thoughts, get help right away, or by taking one of these actions. So you can call 911 or your local emergency number immediately. You can call a suicide hotline number in the United States, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And I've called this for a friend before, and it was pretty helpful. It is 1-800-273-TALK. So that's 1-800-273-8255. You can call them any time of the day. And you can also, if you're a veteran, press 1, reach the Veterans Crisis Line. Also, I discovered in my research this morning, there's a crisis text line for self-harming. And all you have to do is text HOME to 741-741. That's HOME to 741-741. So just some resources should you guys ever need it. I can tell you from experience, if you're dealing with one of these messed up cases and you're being dragged through the family courts and just chewed up and spit out, over and over again, it's just me and my dog right now. So a lot of the times I am alone to deal with myself and my thoughts and my feelings. Sometimes it's peaceful. Other times it's hell. So just having those resources and taking advantage of them is very important. So if you notice any of these signs or symptoms in a family member or friend, talk to that person about seeing a doctor or a mental health provider. You can't force someone to seek help, but if the relationship causes you significant stress, you may find it helpful to see a therapist yourself. And one thing that I can tell you about therapy, I recently started therapy with like this amazing therapist. I mean, like from the onset, you know, I was a little bit skeptical. I haven't had like the greatest experience in the past, talking to therapists. But she was wonderful. You know, I have so many things that I still have to make sense of that I had to endure, growing up. I mean, I was basically like locked in my room for years. Like I wasn't allowed to have any friends. I mean, my mom, she just fucking hated me. And you know, that caused like a really huge dilemma, in like developing necessary social skills that I need. So I want to cry just talking about this. I don't know why. Oh gosh. You know, even as an adult, I'm 28 years old now. I'll be 29 this year. So shit, I'm pushing 30 now. And I still freeze up when I have to talk to people sometimes. Like small talk terrifies me. You know, I envy people who, you know, are able to have those elevator conversations with just literally anyone. You know, and I hope that eventually I can learn how to be comfortable and do that myself. So let's go on to the causes. I'm sorry, guys, I just woke up. As with other mental health disorders, the causes of borderline personality disorder aren't fully understood. In addition to environmental factors, such as a history of child abuse or neglect, borderline personality disorder may be linked to genetics. Some studies of twins and families suggest that personality disorders may be inherited or strongly associated with other mental health disorders among family members, and also can be linked to brain abnormalities. Some research has shown that changes in certain areas of the brain involved in emotion regulation, impulsivity, and aggression. In addition, certain brain chemicals that help regulate mood, such as serotonin, may not function properly. And guys, if you're born with a couple of wires crossed, it's not because you're a bad person or did something, you know, to deserve that. It just means you were born with a chemical imbalance that you had nothing to do with, had no say in, and had zero control over. So just learning those coping skills, getting the help you need, is really important for that. Now let's talk about some risk factors. All right. So some factors related to personality development can increase the risk of developing borderline personality disorder. These include hereditary predisposition. You may be at a higher risk if a close relative, your mother, father, brother, or sister, had the same or similar disorder, or if you had a stressful childhood. Many people with the disorder report being sexually or physically abused. Oh, thank you, James. Let's see. Some people, hold on. Many people with the disorder report being sexually or physically abused or neglected during childhood. Some people have lost or were separated from a parent or close caregiver when they were young, or had parents or caregivers with substance misuse or other mental health issues. I fit almost all those criteria, guys. Others have been exposed to hostile conflict and unstable family relationships, also something that was very prevalent in my family growing up. I mean, like if me and my siblings, and I kid you not, if me and my siblings, the environment was so toxic that if we were given the opportunity to, at some points, like some of us probably would have actually killed each other. That sounds insane, but when I mean, like we're all teenagers. I'm the oldest daughter of 10 kids. So, you know, you had like all these teenage boys, you had this teenage girl, and just all of these personalities. We all have very, very strong personalities. We're all highly intelligent people. You know, our parents were very, very smart. They still are. They're still here. But our parents also had some, you know, serious undiagnosed mental issues, and that definitely translated into our everyday lives growing up. And just, you know, I would look at these, you know, quote unquote normal families around me all the time, and I just wished so badly that I could have been born into a family that wasn't so batshit fucking crazy. And you know, there really was no reason or excuse, you know, that like the classics, like you know, my parents were never alcoholics, they never used drugs. I mean, for fuck's sake, they were Mormons, you know. That was an interesting experience growing up. But there's not that obvious answer to why all those problems existed. So, it's made it really difficult on my journey of healing. Because I struggle with, bringing closure and understanding to something that just didn't make any sense. It didn't have any clear answer as to why it happened. So, we all have our past. It's just understanding that we have the responsibility to walk in the direction of peace. We have the responsibility. And I could harp all day long about, oh, well, I was a kid and this happened to me. I want to talk about it still, so that you guys can relate if you can, and so that we can grow and heal together. But ultimately, I'm an adult now. It's my responsibility to seek help for those issues. I can't spend the rest of my life just blaming that on my parents. And I still hold anger towards them. However, I feel sorry for them. I don't blame them for what I had to endure because I knew that they were sick. So, just remember, it's not healthy to hold on to toxic anger. It's only going to hurt you in the end. Okay, so some complications. Borderline personality disorder can damage many areas of your life. It can negatively affect intimate relationships, jobs, school, social activities, and self-image, resulting in repeated job change or losses, not completing an education, multiple legal issues such as jail time, conflict-related filled relationships, marital stress or divorce, self-injury such as cutting or burning, and frequent hospitalizations, involvement in abusive relationships, unplanned pregnancies, sexually transmitted infections, motor vehicle accidents, and physical fights due to impulsive and risky behavior, and attempted or completed suicide. One thing that really scares me about suicide is that a lot of people who do complete suicide, I would say most people have a change of heart at the very last split second, and they die. They end up dying when they didn't mean to. And that's terrifying. That's terrifying. A lot of suicides are accidents. And it's very scary. It's very scary. So in addition, you may have other mental health disorders such as depression, alcohol or other substance misuse, anxiety disorders, eating disorders, bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and other personality disorders. So that is it for my spoken portion of what is borderline personality disorder. I would like to play a couple of videos for you guys so that's yes, Heather, you cannot grow without forgiveness. And oh man, that's such a loaded word. Forgiveness. Whew. Have I forgiven my children's father for what he's done and what he's doing to all of us? I don't know. I say the word forgive. Like, have I forgiven my parents? I don't really feel it, but I don't harbor anger either. So that goes to show I'm still on my healing journey. As far as my children's father and what he's doing to all of us, I feel pathetic. I feel so sorry for his whatever pathetic soul is inside of his body that compels him to do what he's doing. But, I do believe that we live in a just universe. If you look around you, look at the laws of nature, just look at natural law, just the way things work. This universe, this world that we live in was created to teach us responsibility, to teach us cause and effect, action and consequence. So, when it seems like these people, like these social workers, these toxic exes are getting away with these horrible things that they're doing, it's not our job or our place to determine what their consequences would or should be. We do, however, have the right to pursue justice. That is no easy feat, however. In my personal plight to regain custody of my children, and get back that part of my life that was stolen from me. I often find myself in that same situation where I just wish, can these people just get hit by a fucking bus? But again, it's not my place. So I do trust our universe to do what is necessary in the grand scheme of things. So let's go ahead and play that first video. And hopefully it'll give you guys some insight.
Hey Psych2Goers, welcome back to another video. Thank you all so much for the love and support you've given us. It enables us to present you with continued insight on everyday psychology. So let's begin. Personality disorders come in many different forms and affect people differently. Borderline personality disorder is a specific condition that primarily affects self-perception and relationships. People with the condition typically experience intense emotional instability that deeply impacts everyday life. Please be advised that this is strictly for informative purposes. Do not self-diagnose and do not use this to diagnose or stigmatize others. Please speak with a healthcare provider or a mental health professional for medical or mental health advice in case you relate to any of the points mentioned. To better understand this condition, we'll be discussing 9 things about BPD that you need to know. Number 1, fear of abandonment. People with BPD often experience an intense sensitivity to abandonment. They may feel that the people around them are growing distant, regardless of the truth. They view small changes in behavior as a sign that their partner or friend is growing distant. They resort to clingy behavior in an effort to keep the person from leaving. 2, persistent and wide mood swings. BPD is exhausting. People with the condition often experience intense mood swings that can last hours to days. Moods vary from extreme happiness to sadness and irritability, and may happen within the same day. These moods can be triggered rather easily, as typically people with BPD are sensitive. In some cases, they become violent. However, in other cases, they keep that intense anger bottled up, causing more psychological harm. Number 3, paranoid thinking. Has paranoia become your nemesis? BPD can cause a person to become paranoid and may perhaps lose contact with reality for small periods of time. They feel that people are trying to work against them and fear others' intentions. They may act out on these hunches and cut contact with others to protect themselves. High levels of stress may cause someone to disassociate with themselves, and in more severe cases can cause a psychotic episode. 4, emptiness. Have you ever felt that your life lacks meaning? Most people at some point in life experience such an emotion due to difficult times. People with BPD, however, may feel chronically empty all the time. They feel stuck in a dark tunnel of emotional numbness or despair. These are difficult feelings and they may not know how to handle them. In some cases, they may struggle with self-image and accepting who they are. This, along with fears of abandonment and mood swings, may cause a person to feel empty. This feeling can be dangerous and contributes to other problems such as addiction. 5, impulsivity. Are spending sprees on unnecessary items and binge eating a part of your routine? Do others lament your extra recklessness? BPD can also cause a person to experience intense happiness, so they may indulge in a range of impulsive activities. In this, BPD parallels bipolar disorder and is often misdiagnosed as such. When these behaviors occur only during phases of elevated mood, they may be signs of a mood disorder, not borderline personality disorder. 6, splitting. Are you familiar with the black and white thinking phenomenon? It's the act of being only able to think at the extremes with no regard to a middle ground. Splitting is another term for black and white thinking. People with BPD flip-flop from one extreme emotion to another. For instance, someone may feel an intense love and admiration for a person in their life at one moment, yet if they feel that the person wronged them, those warm, fuzzy feelings may turn into bitter hatred and resentment. This makes their relationships highly unstable. Even minute inconveniences and misunderstandings can flare these extreme emotions. 7, trust issues. Do you overanalyze situations and feel you're being slighted in every situation? People with BPD do so despite the thoughts being completely irrational. They may find it hard to trust others for no reason at all. They feel that they understand others' intentions, but they're always way off. They may also think that another person is cruel to them over a small inconvenience. 8, risk factors for development can be environmental and/or inherited. Developing BPD depends on a few different variables. In some cases, genetics is responsible if a relative has the disorder. In other cases, people who experience highly traumatic events may develop the disorder. Experiences such as separation from someone at a young age to childhood abuse and violence are also influences. Generally, a person begins to show signs of BPD in early adulthood. And 9, change in interest and values. How often do you feel at odds with yourself? Does it also permeate to those around you? A person with BPD may have polarizing views on themselves and others. Similar to splitting, they may feel night and day differences on various topics, especially relating to self. For instance, a person may feel that they have no value to anyone at one moment, but feel the opposite in another. Their interests, values, and relationships are very unstable and lack consistency. BPD is a complex and stigmatized condition. It's important to know that people struggling with BPD are not necessarily bad people. Rather, they're people in need of support. BPD comes with a lot of emotional impulsivity and instability, so it's important to reach out if you feel that you're struggling. What are your thoughts about how the condition affects people? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful.
Okay guys, so, looks like it is getting bright over here. The sun's coming out. So the lighting just got really harsh. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I've got one more for you. The second one I'm going to play, but not yet, is going to be about, how you as a friend or a loved one can deal with somebody who has this disorder. And like I discussed earlier, it is something that, it kind of levels out as you age. It does become extremely intense in your adolescent and early adulthood. A lot of times medication is necessary. I am not on any medication. I have, let's see, Heather, I try so hard to find what lessons I need to learn from this cruel and unusual punishment, but sometimes it's so hard. Heather, I completely understand. If I had the answers, which I wish I did, things would be so much easier, but I don't. Oftentimes horrible things happen to good people. And it's impossible to know why. It helps to have a higher power. I'm trying very hard to come back to God, whatever that even is anymore. But I mean, this thing that's happened in my family has been dragged out for so long. It's been a very long time since I wanted anything to do with that. Also, the confusion and trauma of growing up in a Mormon family. And disclosure, guys, I'm not talking about the Mormons who have like multiple wives, etc. Completely different religion. They call themselves Mormons, but they're not. They're just very extreme radical Christians, very judgmental, a lot of extremely strict rules. I ended up rebelling at it at a younger age. But we'll get into that more another time. So let's talk about the 4 types of borderline personality disorder. So the 4 types are, let's see. Okay, so we've got the discouraged borderline personality disorder. So discouraged borderline personality disorder. Of the 4 subtypes, one of the subtypes is discouraged personality disorder. When a person suffers from discouraged borderline, much of how they think, feel, and behave is driven by the dependent aspects of the personality disorder. According to Psychology Today, from an outside perspective, a person with discouraged borderline personality might look a little bit like someone with dependent personality disorder. This person displays signs of codependence in most relationships in life. The dependence of a discouraged borderline type is most often noticeable when they become dependent on a person with whom the dependence is inappropriate. So a casual friend, for instance, or a boyfriend or girlfriend who they just started dating. A person with the subtype might seem outwardly depressed or serious, especially when compared to some of the other borderline disorder subtypes. So, if you or someone has this disorder, it is extremely important to talk to a mental health professional. Like the video said, don't attempt to self-diagnose or diagnose someone else. You really need an outside perspective and somebody who is trained and licensed in mental health. And specifically, you want to find somebody who is experienced in borderline personality to be able to explain this to you. On the outside, you know, just reading the things off of this paper make it sound like this crazy, extreme, dangerous person. That's not true. That's not the case. There are extreme, you know, cases, and those people need serious help. Or, you know, there are instances where it can become extreme if left untreated. Just remember that it's not this person's fault. This person is not a bad person. They just need a lot of love and a lot of help and support. So that is the discouraged type. Another type is the impulsive borderline personality disorder. So the impulsive borderline personality disorder is among one of the 4 subtypes. This one is the most charismatic of all 4. The impulsive subtype is said to have much in common with histrionic personality disorder. If you guys don't know what histrionic personality disorder is, or histrionic disorder is like, from what I understand, I don't know like too much about it, but it's like they're very animated, manipulative. You know, I guess I would have to talk about that another time because I don't think I have like the answer. Just look it up. Histrionic. So that is another subtype. There's the petulant borderline. Let's talk about that one. So the petulant borderline personality disorder. Let's see. Let's start off with a story. Kylie came to Optimum Performance Institute at the age of 20 for help treating petulant borderline personality disorder, which had made healthy relationships nearly impossible for years. No one could deny that Kylie's childhood was difficult. Her mother was an addict, and her father had never been in the picture. She was 6 years old when she and her sister were removed from their home. You know, they moved foster homes 3 times before their mother's parental rights were terminated and they were adopted. So her new parents were kind, helped her with schoolwork, and included her in everything the rest of the family was doing. She became accustomed to them, but never felt close to them. In fact, she made it a point to keep secrets from her family. Whether the secret was big or it was small, it didn't matter. She liked to know that she wasn't depending on them and didn't know everything about her. So some of the symptoms of a petulant is the inability to express feelings, outbursts of anger, feelings of being unworthy and unloved, socially anxious, extreme fear of abandonment, a need to control others, experiencing dissatisfaction in relationships, co-occurring disorders such as substance abuse, eating disorders, suspicion of others and paranoia in relationships, self-harming tendencies, you know, intense mood swings, posing ultimatums in relationships, proving that someone doesn't love her, constantly searching for validation, push and pull relationships, wanting others to feel guilty for their actions or lack of actions, someone who's negative, someone who's passive aggressive, shutting others out of their lives, or using suicidal behavior or self-injurious behaviors to control others. So most petulant borderline personality disorder behaviors stem from a fear of abandonment, a lack of self-worth, and an inability to self-soothe. With the right treatment, you can resolve these challenges and overcome petulant borderline personality disorder. All right, and lastly, we have the self-destructive borderline. So again, this one has another story. What does self-destructive BPD look like? Jacob grew up without his father, who divorced his mother and moved away when he was just a baby. In spite of his mother's persistent depression and other mental health challenges, Jacob went on to make friends, do well academically, and play football for his high school. Although no one knew it, he grew up hating himself so deeply that he rarely believed anyone could feel any differently about him. He believed from his deepest core that he did not deserve to be loved. When he said the wrong thing in class, messed up a play in football practice, or felt like an outlier among his friends, Jacob had habits of breaking into the liquor cabinet before his mom got home to numb the self-hatred. I personally have experienced a lot of that growing up. I'm still learning to recover. So his junior year in high school, Jacob started dating Annie. When he was with her, he experienced moments of relief from his extreme self-hatred, intermingled with many more moments of intense fear that she would leave him, because how could she love him like she said she did? He idolized Annie. He felt she was the best part of his entire life. Spring of senior year, Annie told Jacob that she had applied to an out-of-state university and had been accepted with a full scholarship. Jacob felt betrayed, as they had planned to both attend the local state university. Jacob couldn't bear his emotions. He couldn't believe he let himself think that Annie loved him, that she ever cared about him, and that maybe she would stick around. So this is also an example of splitting. So instead of understanding that, you know, she is an adult now, you know, needing to make important decisions about her life and her future, instead of seeing that gray area and understanding that, you know, Annie is simply doing what's best for her, you know, he just instantly switched into believing that she is just an all bad, terrible person, and she was never good from the beginning. That's a great example of splitting. So he told Annie that she couldn't leave him. He would kill himself if she did. After Annie went home, he locked himself in his room with alcohol and a weapon and called Annie to tell her goodbye. It took Jacob's best friend shimmying up the house to a second-story bedroom window to calm him down that night and keep him safe. So Jacob falls into the self-destructive BPD subtype. Before entering treatment at the Optimum Performance Institute, he displayed several of the common traits of self-destructive borderline personality disorder. Guys, this is a mouthful. Okay, so lastly, we'll just talk about some of the symptoms and then we'll move on. So self-destructive BPD includes intense feelings of self-loathing and self-hatred, prone to self-harm, often depressed, feelings of bitterness. You're looking for comfort through attention from others. You have suicidal behavior, self-injurious behavior, substance abuse. You engage in reckless behaviors out of lack of self-care, not to impress others. You tend to sabotage your own happiness and well-being due to feelings of being undeserving. You have a unstable self-image. You lack identity, and you believe no one cares about you, and so they don't care about themselves, and you have unstable emotions. So those are the 4 main subtypes. Just to recap. Oh, never mind. I already went away from it, so let's not worry about that. Okay, so we've got the discouraged borderline personality disorder, the impulsive borderline personality disorder, the petulant borderline, and the self-destructive borderline. Now, you don't have to be just one. You can have like a combination of some or all. You can move back and forth between them. It's very complex, you know, just like we as humans are very complex creatures. So are these diagnoses. And again, just remember, you know, at the end of the day, you're not damaged, you're not broken, you're not a bad person. You know, we're just creating labels as humans to understand something that we really barely know anything about. But still talk to a professional. They will, you know, be able to provide you with coping skills, 2 possible coping skills. And I did this when I was younger. There's something called dialectical behavior therapy, DBT. And I kind of did that in combination with EMDR to reprocess some of the more extreme traumatic experiences I've had. Because, you know, until your brain is able to process it with a professional, you know, with me, we used EMDR, which basically taught my brain that, you know, when I'm thinking about this traumatic event, it's not still happening. But until you can work through those extreme traumas with a professional, when you think about that emotional and mental pain of these traumas that you have, your brain actually thinks it's happening all over again in real time. Your brain isn't able to differentiate that, oh, this happened in the past, because, you know, the pain is still real. And then your brain is perceiving that as a threat. And, you know, often those memories will trigger us into some of these behaviors. So understanding those behaviors and getting the help you need is very important. Dialectical behavior therapy is kind of like a mindfulness therapy. Actually, no, I think that's more like cognitive. Again, I'm not a licensed psychologist, but dialectical behavior therapy is something that is really helpful for people with borderline. It teaches you, you know, to not only be more mindful, but you learn like very important coping skills that you need in the moment. And it helps with the way that your brain, you know, was wired or became wired, in the way that you think about things and perceive the world and events. So without further ado, let's move into something a little more lighthearted. So I have come up with a list of things to do when you're sad. Actually, before we go on, let's before we end the borderline personality portion, I want to play that last video on how friends and loved ones can help and understand somebody with BPD. So let's go ahead and play that second video.
Hey Psych2Goers. Did you click on this video because you have a friend who has borderline personality disorder or BPD? Or maybe you've been diagnosed with BPD. Mental health professionals estimate approximately 1.6% of the population meets the criteria for borderline personality disorder. So chances are you have at least one friend with BPD. Unfortunately, the symptoms and behaviors associated with BPD, such as manipulation, self-harm, and emotions like an intense roller coaster, can make staying friends difficult. Have you ever asked yourself why your friend with BPD does the things they do? This video breaks down 4 things your friend with borderline personality disorder wants you to know, but doesn't know how to tell you. 1. Their thoughts and feelings work differently than yours. Although anyone can go through a low point in their lives, people who don't have BPD have difficulty understanding what their friends with BPD might be going through. One minute the world is perfect and they feel untouchable. The next minute, however, it can all come crashing down after they feel triggered. The individual with BPD has difficulty regulating emotion and understanding the shades of gray that normally help people without BPD put things into context. It can be frustrating, draining, and downright heartbreaking to watch someone you care about on a roller coaster of emotion, especially if it seems to happen a lot. But have you ever asked yourself why this happens? Emotionally speaking, individuals diagnosed with BPD experience the world as if they're missing at least one layer of skin. This creates a constant feeling of emotional hypersensitivity and rawness. People diagnosed with BPD often say that they feel empty, worthless, or numb. At the core of this is often an intense fear of rejection, abandonment, and loneliness. These deep, intense feelings and difficulty with context often distort the thoughts of someone with BPD, steering them towards self-harm and negative self-talk. Unfortunately, these tendencies towards self-destructive behavior and negative self-talk often get the person with BPD labeled as manipulative or attention-seeking. What your friend with BPD wants you to know is, 2. It's not all about attention or getting their way. Common symptoms of BPD include unstable moods and identity, risky behaviors, deep fears of abandonment and rejection, and a tendency towards suicidal thinking and gestures. These symptoms are often used to explain the behaviors most commonly associated with BPD, such as needing constant validation from others, threatening suicide, giving ultimatums, and emotional reactions that seem too intense or overboard. It can seem like no matter how much you're there for your friend with BPD, you can never do enough to make them see it. In addition to discouraging, this can feel like you're trying to fill up the Grand Canyon with a small spoon. But those behaviors you find clingy, manipulative, or attention-seeking aren't what they appear. Oftentimes, individuals diagnosed with BPD fear rejection and abandonment because they've experienced a lot of rejection and abandonment in their lives. Until individuals with BPD learn the coping and social skills they need to successfully work through these deep-seated fears, they use the negative behaviors as a way to get their needs met. This kicks off the following self-fulfilling, self-destructive cycle. First, something happens, like a breakup, an argument with a friend, not getting the recognition they want at work or school. That triggers the individual with BPD's deepest fears. Second, this activates a barrage of angry or negative self-talk, which creates a lot of anxiety and depression for your friend with BPD. Third, because your friend does not have the emotional skin to cope with their internal stress, the depression and anxiety can make them feel like they're being swallowed whole by it. Fourth, they act out in whatever way they know how, often via manipulation, erratic behavior, blowing up, self-harm, or issuing threats. And lastly, their loved ones often pull away, which creates more self-hate, depression, and anxiety in your friend who has been diagnosed with BPD. Their fears get triggered again. The cycle often repeats itself in your friend's life, which can lead to increased feelings of loneliness, abandonment, and rejection. So how do you deal with a friend struggling with BPD? Watching your friend struggle can make you feel helpless or question your own reality, but please remember, 3, you can set boundaries with your friend who has been diagnosed with BPD. Although you should never force yourself to stay in any relationship that is mentally, emotionally, or physically harming to you, it is possible to be friends with someone diagnosed with BPD, but you'll need to set some boundaries with them. The first step to setting these boundaries is to understand it's not personal. Your loved one diagnosed with BPD most likely acts the way they do because they don't have the emotional, psychological, or coping skills to navigate their relationships. Their challenging behaviors probably aren't about you, even if they're directed at you. Once you understand your friend's behavior is more about them than you, setting boundaries with your friend will get easier. Then you can set boundaries by remaining mindful of your feelings, asserting your limits, and being direct, sticking to the facts, and seeking support when you need it. You'll probably have to repeat yourself and stick to your guns when you set boundaries with a loved one diagnosed with BPD. But maintaining a firm yet compassionate stance is important self-care for you both. Remember that you're teaching them valuable skills as well as how to treat you. Leave a comment below if you'd like to see a video on how to set boundaries.
Okay, so that was the second video. I have a very close female friend of mine where when we've been friends for years, but we started hanging out more and more. And this was kind of at the peak of, when the case and my life was just really falling apart. And, we'd go out, we'd have some drinks, we'd have some fun. But, a lot of times, well, I wouldn't say a lot of times, but there were a couple of times where, the night ended in a pretty intense fight. Not like a physical fight, but, we just really didn't see eye to eye. And, in retrospect, I'm not sure if it was either one of us or both of us. Oh, let me see, Amy. I know you're very passionate about what you do. I absolutely watch all of Miss Georgette's videos, and she speaks highly of you. Oh my gosh, thank you, Amy. Georgette's my supervisor, and also like I consider her a very dear friend. Thank you so much. We're all on this journey together. But I sent her these videos, my female friend, that I just showed you today, and it took her a couple days to respond. But it helped her to understand much better, like why, one day, we're just chatting and chatting and chatting. And the next day I'm at home isolating. I physically, like, I get into these modes where, and like, I run multiple businesses, guys. Like, my phone is always blowing up. I could probably minimize my screen right now, and I most likely have 30 missed calls and 60 text messages. I have these periods where I like isolate myself. I physically cannot answer my phone. I physically just can't answer a text message. Like, I don't have the emotional and mental capacity to do it. It doesn't mean like that I'm damaged or I'm purposely ignoring anybody. It's hard to explain. I just lack the energy. Like, the thought of engaging with another human in that moment is so overwhelming to me. I just can't do it. I also have periods of agoraphobia, which I'm not diagnosed with, but I do have moments of that where like I can't go outside. I'm terrified to go outside. Sometimes I'll force myself to do it anyway, and it kind of like makes it go away, but the experience is incredibly stressful. But then I have other moments where I just want to throw caution to the wind. I just want to get the hell outside in the sun, so just understanding yourself better is very helpful. Remember, like the video said, this is something that gets better as you age. As we all grow and mature, we do learn coping skills. We do learn social skills. And just, like that last video said, it's very important to remain mindful and compassionate with your friends and loved ones who have any personality disorder, and setting and staying with those boundaries is also important. So I have a blog post that I'm going to post on the page when we're done. These are some things to do when you're sad. And we only have about 10 minutes left. So I'll cover a few of them, and this will bring me into my show and tell. So I have always been very artistic ever since I was little. Oh, thank you, Princess. I'm glad that you're able to relate. As I learn how to deal with this, I will share, those findings with you guys, and hopefully we can grow and heal together. So in the first part of our list, and actually this blogger has her own book. So her name is Shiori Obata. So number one on the list of things to do when you're sad. Oh, yes. Thank you, Heather. So first thing to do is create art or do-it-yourself crafts. So without further ado, I'm going to show you some of my most prized pieces of art, which I finally found in my garage full of boxes. So this I made on Mother's Day 2021. I sketched this picture of my children. This was an actual picture that was taken. If you saw, I don't think I can show the actual photo of my kids. I'll ask my supervisor next time, but this is an almost exact replica of what the photograph looked like. This is my oldest. This is my little middle, and this is my baby girl. I miss them so much. It's been almost a year since I've seen them, and I can't say it ever gets easier. So when my children would come over, I would hand them sketchbooks. You know, I like to invest in their creativity as well. So they've made lots of cute little pictures like this, and it's just it's nice to look at. Oh, that's hard. I remember there's this, I actually have it outside in my garage right now. I got like big poster boards, and we were just doing kind of like group drawings. And my oldest son, Gabriel, who I see a lot of myself in him, and that concerns me, especially considering all the trauma that my kids are facing right now. I'm probably most concerned about my oldest child's future. He's going to deal with a lot of, intense emotions, but he, one of the things he used to say when he was a baby was, "Mommy, I have 1 million hearts." And when I would scold him or reprimand or chastise him, he would say, "Mom, you broke one of my 1 million hearts. I don't have 1 million hearts anymore." And on this drawing, we had this big poster board, and he gets a marker and he starts drawing all these hearts. And at first I was like, "Oh, how sweet." And he starts drawing lines through them like it's a broken heart. And he said, "Mom, they broke all my hearts. I just want to come home." Oh, so it's always hard when you as a parent just feel so powerless against this fucked up system that gives no regard to the best interests of your children. And again, they won't return them to their loving families because they're making money, or in other cases like mine, they're just, putting your kids with a convicted violent criminal who they have disclosed several times is abusing them because they've established that they don't like you. So, okay, trigger warning. This is something that I did when I was feeling very intense emotions. I didn't want to live a life without my kids in it. So instead of, acting on those emotions, I chose to draw instead. So this is just how I was feeling in that moment. And we've got a couple more, and then we'll get into the list. We've got about 5 minutes left. This was the first painting that I did. I put a lot of my thoughts and feelings on there. Malfeasance was one of the big ones for me. These people are just disgusting. I'm disgusted with what they've done. With this case, dealing with a narcissist. So just some things like that. Let me know if you guys would like me to post these on the page for you to look at some more. I might sell them one day. I don't know. I'll probably keep them forever. And this one is one of my favorites. It was a mixed media, but the little thing came out. So there's like a little hole right there. But there used to be like metal, like kind of, to imitate the bone structure of this hand. This is a piece that I made when I was struggling a lot with my concept of my higher power, who is God. So, up here you see like it starts off, as like light, and then, through this cloud, and I think I put the little Jesus fish there. But it's a hand descending from the clouds, and it's just squeezing on her head so hard that she's exploding. She's got her face in her hands. She's crying. I put a lot of texture in this one. Oh, and then Jesus who. Yeah, I was very angry when I did this. So, you know, a lot of times, like when I'm just feeling those really intense emotions, I'll start to use art. Thank you, Princess. So those are some things to do that are helpful. We are almost out of time for today. So I'll you know, share some things on this list. Something that I have been wanting to do is to make a to-do list. Like when I feel really self-destructive, just make a list of all the million things I have to do in my house still. You know, if I'm feeling overwhelmed or lonely or just feeling anything that I feel like I need help managing, you know, I wanted to write this list of just small tasks, probably like a laundry list of small tasks. And just, you know, when I need to distract myself, pick something off the list and do it. Another thing that I learned from my life coach, he's amazing. I'll talk more about him another time. But he, you know, he said 15 minutes. So, you know, if you're struggling with addiction and you're craving a substance, set a timer for 15 minutes. If you engage in self-harming behaviors or suicidal behaviors, set a timer. If you feel that urge, set a timer for 15 minutes. And while you do that, distract yourself. Distract yourself with something off that list or off this list that I'm going to read and post. It's incredibly helpful. There is something about the way our brain is wired. After 15 minutes, you no longer want to do that. If the feeling still persists, then you need to step it up a little bit and you know, reach the next level of help. So first on the list, create art or do yourself crafts, listen to beautiful music. I struggle with the music portion because I often listen to very sad songs. You know, dance to your favorite songs, write in a journal, read a book, watch motivational YouTube videos. That is one that I used to do. It's very helpful. Acts of kindness, forgive, get to know yourself, pretty yourself up. That always helps. And lastly, I wanted to play a song for you guys today at the end of the show, which we're going to play in a moment. It is, it's a very heartfelt song for me. You know, that saying, if you love something, let it go. If it comes back to you, it's yours. If it doesn't, it was never meant to be. Well, this song for me, the narrative is kind of me talking to my children. You know, the song is, it kind of helps you just let go in the moment. I want them to be happy. I don't want them to miss me. I don't want them to be in pain. I want them to be happy. I want them to live their best life that they can, considering their circumstances. And I just want them to know that I'm still here in the background fighting each and every day. And I cannot wait to be with them again. I just don't know when that ever is going to be, because unfortunately this is the system that we live in, a system that destroys families. So let's go ahead and play that song. The song is called Mirror.
You're channeling wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're channeling wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, oh.
Okay, guys, so that brings us to the end of our show. That song, you know, it might sound like you're giving up, but that's not the purpose of the song. You know, keep me in your mirror. Like, don't forget about me, but, you know, don't take your eyes off the road. I want you to live your best life. I want you to be happy. And I'll be here. I'll be here when it's time for you to come home. We just don't know when that's going to be. For parents who have lost their children or had their rights terminated, their kids have been adopted, which, you know, breaks my heart. I've talked to so many parents with that type of case. You know, you might not see your kids until they're adults. And, you know, if that happens to me, I don't know how they're going to feel at that point. A lot of these foster parents and CPS workers and toxic exes, they brainwash their children. You know, adopted parents will keep the child from ever being able to have contact with their biological parents who had lost them. So that is Mirror by Madison Ryan Ward. And thank you guys again for joining me today. I may come off as cool, calm, and collected, like I have all my shit together emotionally and mentally. But I want to be vulnerable and raw with you guys and let you know that is not the case. That is not the case. You know, I sometimes have these cycles where, you know, when I said sometimes being alone is hell, sometimes it's peaceful, but sometimes it's hell. You know, I tend to repress my emotions. I have difficulty processing things that are painful. I just want to make it go away. So, you know, over time, I would say maybe like once every couple months, it just builds up and builds up to a point where, I'm just like, I feel like, you know, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs and no one can hear me. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm literally suffocating. I'm surrounded by people in this room, you know, figuratively, and I'm reaching out for help. I'm drowning and nobody sees me. And that's how it feels sometimes. When you've had everything you love ripped away from you. And it gets very lonely. So I do have, my dog. He's like my emotional support, little fur baby. So that's always helpful. You know, so I'm not completely alone, but, if you guys are by yourselves and you don't have a pet or you don't really have anything and it's just you, just be aware that that's very dangerous. It's very important to have a family member or a friend who you can call. But don't be discouraged that, you know, sometimes in your greatest moments of need, nobody is there to answer. Nobody's there to, oh, that's a gray squirrel. Sorry, ADD. I've never seen a gray squirrel. They're always brown. Anyway, so, and that's my favorite color. Maybe it's a sign. But just remember to be very aware of your emotions. It has taken me years to identify like the stages in this cycle that can sometimes be very dangerous to myself. I'm not outwardly dangerous or harmful to anyone else. But when the pain hits me, like, let me tell you, it hits me hard. And I just, you know, it's hard to find what to do with all that pain. So we'll talk about that a little bit more another time. So this is the end of our show, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys were able to get a little bit of information out of this. I will post this list of things to do when you're feeling sad on the page. Join me Monday for CPS current events, and we will talk about, the lawsuits against CPS, bills that are being passed. I'll probably have a guest to talk about her experiences, and I look forward to seeing you guys then. So that's going to be Monday at 1:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm Eastern Time, so it's going to be 4:00 my time. Thank you all again for joining me, and you guys have a fantastic day. Just remember, we are here to heal, and everything is going to be okay in the end. Okay, bye.